Hi there, it's Sam. So I figured for this video I was going to critique one of the MOOCs that I took part in this week. Now I've never done a MOOC before, so I figured I would go for one of the recommended ones because I didn't even know which website to go to, and I would also do one in nutrition and health, kind of diabetes and disease, because that's a topic I already know a lot about. I covered it during my degree, and then I teach it year in, year out to a range of different year groups. So it's hopefully material that I'm comfortable with so that I could go through and just focus more on how it's taught on the course and kind of compare that to how I teach and see if there are some things that I can take away that I quite like and perhaps some things that I would prefer were done better or wouldn't incorporate into my kind of practice. So the first notable thing that I found was a lot of the kind of backing of the course, a lot of the credentials it seems to put around are just how many people are involved, which for me isn't necessarily a good sign of education. Just because a lot of people are doing it doesn't necessarily mean it's a good idea. The website itself espouses 21 plus million learners across uh, thousands and thousands of courses, which sounds really impressive. And I mean, there were in excess of 10,000 people enrolled on this course, but for me, I wasn't too convinced. And the other thing that I noticed when I signed up was this need to be verified, the idea that lots and lots of the files um, might be kept behind a paywall, which is something I've noticed several times. I wrote about it in an earlier blog post on Kahoot, and in a lot of technologies now, whether it's quizzing technology or it's note-taking technology, a lot of features seem to be hidden behind paywalls these days as a way for kind of, I suppose, software manufacturers to make their money. Now, it wasn't just one little pop up on the home screen that said, get verified, it'll improve your account. It was email after email after email before I even sat down to actually do the course at the weekend and go through some of the modules. I'd already received in excess of 5 emails urging me to verify and give them money, and I could have discount codes, and I would get so much more out of the course, um, which was, to be honest, really, really annoying, really irritating to be hounded for money, and to forever be checking my emails and having my kind of inbox flooded with message after message after message saying, you need to spend your money to get the most out of this course, and we're going to restrict, good teaching, good pedagogy, access to the resources until you pay for it, um, which seems counterintuitive to the idea that it's an open course. Um, Even if we were to assume open just means we're going to give you access and nothing more. Even that seems to be limited so far. So one of the positives that I was looking out for on the course was a bit of a social environment. I've read a few of the papers this week, and the idea of social learning and networking and sharing experiences with other people and getting input from people from various backgrounds and at different points in their education seems, on the surface, to be quite a valuable tool that this sort of service can offer. You're no longer stuck to a classroom. You actually get to share with ideas with the thousands and thousands of people that they advertised enrolled across hundreds of countries. So they do have a welcome forum. The only nuisance being that they encourage you to make your own thread, meaning there are hundreds and hundreds of threads, and in each one you get a very personal introduction from whoever made the thread. And then, as you can see, just there's 2 replies to each one because it's always just a stock reply from a staff member, and there's no incentive to really go in and get to know everybody because there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these. So to actually be able to get invested, to keep up with them, to hope that the people who made them are going to check back and reply, it's just not feasible. So it seems on the surface like a really good idea, but actually the execution of this kind of social approach to learning seems like people aren't quite that invested. So far, the social angle isn't really standing up for me. The idea that I'm going to get something out of this isn't standing up for me because I've already been told I need to pay if I want it verified and I want a certificate and I want good outcomes. Um, I decided, okay, that aside, we'll go through and we'll at least see what the content's like and how it's been delivered. And all I could see was a lot of text, akin to a Wikipedia article, a couple of videos which were nicely produced, but again, not really anything that you couldn't find on YouTube. And then as soon as I get to the first assignment, I find that it's actually verified content. And if you want any chance of feedback, if you want any chance to have a good piece of extended writing or get a bit of analysis from a qualified member of the staff, that's not going to happen unless you pay again. So I'm kind of invested in the course. I've gone through the materials. They're no different to what I could find elsewhere with relative ease. And if I actually want any input again, it's not open to me unless I pay. And in fact, this isn't just a phenomenon that's happening once or twice. This seems to be throughout pretty much every single module, and in some instances twice. Midterm exams you don't have access to. Any debate assignments or kind of longer writing that you might get some written feedback on, all of that is closed off without investing the money. So all I'm really getting um, by signing up, other than email spam, is access to articles similar to a Wikipedia page, only with much less in the way of referencing, and a couple of nicely made videos that I could find elsewhere on the web. Now, unfortunately, the kind of exams and assignments and tests that I do have access to are very, very limited in their scope. They're essentially all tick box, multiple choice sorts of questions, which aren't really investigating any depth. They're not investigating any application of knowledge, any kind of higher order thinking skill that I might want to get out of this to show that I am, well qualified and I know what I'm talking about. It's really quite lacking. There's plenty of places where you could get multi-choice questions and quizzes, and I feel they don't necessarily show the best understanding of the learner. So it might feel nice to tick some boxes and get told that I'm correct and flick through and feel like I'm doing really well, but actually in practice, I'd be questioning how what the efficacy of this is, especially considering this is all to do with nutrition and health. Some of the people on the forum were saying, they're doctors, or they're medical students, or they have an interest in this, and they might actually need to put this knowledge into practice. And I'd be querying how well a course like this actually prepares people like that for their profession. Now, one thing I did like, one thing that I would try and incorporate if I was going to do something like this, and would love to see in my own classroom, I like the idea that after a few of the quizzes and a few of the questions, or a few of the resources and videos and things, there was an embedded forum. So as that reminder to go back and partake in the kind of social aspect of the course, and spend some time doing this. Now, the problem is, this is the only place it's accessible. So once you've completed this section, and you've done your little quiz, and you've left some feedback or some comments or some queries in that forum, you click next, you move on, and how and when do you ever return to it? It's very much a tick box exercise. It's there, and in principle it's nice. But again, you can see that in terms of contributions, we're talking 2, 3, maybe 4 replies, 12 for the sticky post at the top. If you're going to boast in excess of 10,000 users, and you're barely getting 2 and 3 comments in question threads, can you really call this a social experience? Can we say that this is promoting social learning and it's opening up dialogue between people and it's making all these kind of resources accessible to everyone? I wouldn't have thought so. So I suppose my closing thoughts. Overall, in principle, they make a lot of sense. And if you can incorporate what the research shows in the range of papers we've looked at this week, of making it more social, making there more communication, more chance to actually get feedback from either your peers or the people who've actually put the course together, that might make this a more valuable experience. But for me, it's a lot of multi-choice tests and surface knowledge, and I just wonder how. I mean, it's definitely learning, I guess. I can read things and I can learn stuff, but is it proper education? Do I feel like I'm getting something out of this beyond just kind of forcing myself to learn? Perhaps not. And like I said earlier, especially on when some of these are on engineering or on health or on disease, um, my concern would be how robustly we are, I suppose, verifying them. Ironically, to take the term that they use to take money off people, how are we showing that they're comparable to traditional GCSEs or A levels or degrees? Because I should imagine there are people who spend a lot of money on these and get verified, and they build big CVs and portfolios and accredited badge collections to show how many courses they've done and to show how well educated they are. And I just wonder, is that necessarily true? I'd love to talk to people like that. I would love to be in touch with people who have entire CVs built not of traditional qualifications from established institutions, but from MOOCs and OERs and these online courses where you can get badges and things. And I'd love to talk to them and find out what their experience of employment is like, what their job satisfaction is like, what career they've built for themselves. Has this been an education for them, or do they feel they've learned a lot of things, but actually putting them into practice they've been left a little bit lacking and then been sold something that isn't necessarily true. So I suppose those are my thoughts on this. I'd love to go on about it more and more and more, but I'm conscious the video will end up 10, 15, 20 minutes long. Um, So yeah, MOOCs on the whole, not completely sold. I like them in principle, but from the one that I've experienced this week, and perhaps it's just too small a sample size, but from the one I've experienced this week, I think there's inherently some big problems. And to assume that it's open just because it's online and that that's intrinsically a good thing is severely, severely lacking. It's really doing a disservice to the education profession.